Welcome back to the government report. What if the most dangerous weapon ever built doesn't fire bullets, doesn't drop bombs, and doesn't make a single sound? What if it runs silently, on servers, in satellite networks, inside the phones in your pocket, and nobody talks about it because most people don't even know it exists? Somewhere right now, a government is using artificial intelligence to decide who lives and who dies, not in some distant science fiction future, today, this moment. And the rules for this new kind of war haven't been written yet. Nobody agreed on them, nobody voted, and nobody asked you. How AI replaced human commanders. For most of human history, war required human decisions at every step. A commander had to look at a map, read intelligence reports, weigh his options, and give an order. That process was slow, it was messy, and it was deeply human, which meant it was fallible, emotional, and sometimes mercifully hesitant. That era is ending. Today's militaries are feeding AI systems with satellite imagery, intercepted communications, financial data, social media activity, and signals intelligence, and asking those systems to generate target lists faster than any human analyst ever could. What used to take a team of 30 intelligence officers working 3 days can now happen in under 40 seconds. The AI doesn't sleep. It doesn't second-guess itself. It doesn't feel doubt. The United States military has been developing systems under programs like Project Maven, where AI algorithms are trained to analyze drone footage and identify targets. Israel has a system reportedly called the Gospel, an AI targeting tool that can generate 100 potential strike coordinates in a single day. China is embedding AI into its command and control infrastructure at a pace that has genuinely alarmed Western defense analysts. Russia has been experimenting with autonomous weapon systems in Ukraine, and these are just the programs we know about. How AI has helped in recent wars. When Iran launched its largest direct attack on Israeli soil in April 2024, over 300 drones and missiles fired in a single night, the world watched the interceptions light up the sky like fireworks. It looked almost beautiful in the way that catastrophic things sometimes do from a distance. But what most people didn't see was the invisible architecture underneath those interceptions. Israel's Iron Dome and its layered air defense network don't work the way people imagine them working. There isn't a soldier at a screen frantically pressing buttons to shoot down incoming missiles. The system is AI-driven. It calculates trajectories in milliseconds. It prioritizes threats by projected impact location, classifying which incoming objects will hit populated areas and which will land in the empty desert. It makes those decisions, life or death decisions, faster than a human brain can process a single frame of video. And it's not just defense. The conflict between Israel and Iran has become one of the world's first laboratories for offensive AI in live combat. Israel's Signals Intelligence Unit, Unit 8200, is considered by many experts to be one of the most advanced cyber and AI warfare organizations on the planet. They don't just intercept communications, they use machine learning to map human networks, trace supply chains, identify commanders, and predict behavior. During the ongoing war in the Gaza campaign that followed on October 7th, reports emerged of AI systems being used to cross-reference facial recognition data, phone location history, and known associational networks to generate what insiders described as automated target recommendations. The system, the Gospel, could reportedly process intelligence and suggest strike targets at a volume and speed that fundamentally changed how the military campaign was being conducted. This is not the war your grandfather fought. This is not even the war your older brother might have trained for. This is something that doesn't have a name yet. A conflict where the most important decisions are being made by systems that don't have names or faces, and where accountability has been quietly dissolved into lines of code. The ghost networks. There's a layer to modern warfare that rarely makes the news, and it's arguably more consequential than anything you see in the footage. It lives in the electromagnetic spectrum, in the signals, the frequencies, the data packets flying invisibly between satellites, command posts, ships, aircraft, and weapon systems. AI has transformed this invisible layer into a battlefield of its own. Electronic warfare, jamming communications, spoofing GPS signals, intercepting encrypted transmissions, has existed since World War II, but AI has weaponized it in entirely new ways. Instead of simply jamming a broad frequency range and disrupting everything, modern AI-driven electronic warfare systems can surgically target specific communication signatures. They can identify an enemy commander's communication device based on behavioral patterns, isolate the signal, and either intercept it, corrupt it, or feed it false information, all without the target ever knowing something went wrong. In Ukraine, both sides have been using AI to adapt their electronic warfare systems in real time. Russian jamming systems have been interfering with Ukrainian drone navigation, forcing Ukrainian operators to constantly evolve their technology. Ukraine, backed by significant Western intelligence support, has been using AI to map Russian electronic warfare assets and find windows in the jamming to allow drone strikes through. The feedback loop is relentless. The AI on one side learns, the AI on the other side adapts, and the speed of that adaptation has compressed the timeline of military innovation from years to weeks to, in some cases, days. Somewhere in all of this acceleration, something deeply important is being lost, and most people are too distracted to notice what it is. Deepfakes, AI, and disinformation. In every war ever fought, controlling the narrative was important. Propaganda is as old as civilization, but what's happening now is qualitatively different, and that difference matters enormously. AI can now generate photorealistic videos of events that never happened. It can clone voices with only a few seconds of audio. It can write thousands of social media posts in dozens of languages, posting them through networks of fake accounts that look completely real, behave like real humans, and can simulate emotional responses to current events. State-sponsored information operations that once required hundreds of human agents can now be run by a handful of people with the right tools. During the Iran-Israel escalation of 2024 and into 2025, researchers documented coordinated influence operations running on both sides. Fabricated videos appeared on platforms claiming to show attacks that hadn't happened. AI-generated news articles spread through WhatsApp and Telegram before anyone had a chance to fact-check them. Deepfake audio attributed statements to officials that those officials never made. By the time corrections were issued, if they were issued at all, the false versions had already reached millions of people. This matters because belief shapes behavior. If enough people in a country believe their military has won a victory it hasn't won, they support continuing the war. If enough people believe their enemy has committed an atrocity it didn't commit, they become easier to mobilize. AI-generated misinformation isn't just an annoyance, it's a strategic weapon that can shift public will, influence elections, undermine alliances, and change the political calculus of entire nations. And here's the part that truly unsettles the people who study this professionally. We are still in the early stages. The technology being used to generate this content will be 10 times more capable in 2 years. 20 times more capable in 5. The window where humans could still reliably detect AI-generated content is closing, and it's closing fast. Which raises a question that sounds philosophical but is actually urgently practical. If you can no longer trust the evidence of your own eyes and ears, what does that do to a democracy? What does that do to the concept of informed consent? The line nobody admits crossing. There is a line that governments and militaries around the world have been publicly insisting they won't cross, while privately moving steadily closer to it. That line is full autonomy, the point at which a weapons system selects and engages a target with no human approval in the loop whatsoever. Officially, most major powers maintain that there will always be a human in the decision chain. A human pulls the trigger, metaphorically or literally. This is called meaningful human control, and it's the standard that military ethicists and international law advocates have been pushing as the minimum requirement for legal and moral accountability. But in practice, that principle is being hollowed out by the realities of speed. When an AI-managed air defense system has to decide in 0.3 seconds whether an incoming object is a commercial aircraft or a cruise missile, there is no time for a human to review the decision. The human in the loop is really just a person who configured the system hours earlier and is now watching it work. When an autonomous drone swarm is operating in a GPS-denied, communications-jammed environment, the swarm has to make its own decisions, because there's no signal path back to a human operator. The technology has already outrun the ethics. The weapons are already partially autonomous. The threshold that everyone agreed not to cross has, in many practical scenarios, already been crossed, quietly, incrementally, without a single public debate or vote. Turkey's Kargu 2 drone was reportedly used in Libya in 2020 in a way that may have constituted the first autonomous lethal engagement without human intervention. The UN panel that documented this couldn't be certain, partly because nobody involved wanted to confirm what had happened, and partly because the event happened so fast that determining whether a human made the final decision was genuinely unclear. Think about that. We may have already crossed the most significant threshold in the history of warfare, and the news cycle barely paused. The new arms race. The Cold War had rules. Not because the United States and the Soviet Union trusted each other, they absolutely didn't, but because both sides understood that certain actions would lead to outcomes neither could survive. Mutually assured destruction was terrifying, but it was also, in a grim way, stabilizing. Both sides knew what the other's weapons could do. Both sides had a rough picture of the balance of power. No such clarity exists in AI warfare, and that absence of clarity is itself one of the most dangerous things about it. When a country develops a new nuclear weapon, the existence of that weapon can eventually be verified through satellite imagery, seismic monitoring, defector intelligence. When a country develops a new AI warfare capability, it may be completely invisible until the moment it's used. A new cyber weapon, a new disinformation architecture, a new targeting algorithm, a new method of electronic warfare. These don't have a physical footprint. They don't show up on satellites. This creates a fundamentally unstable strategic environment. Countries are investing billions in AI military capabilities without knowing what their adversaries have. They're making deterrence calculations based on incomplete information. And because no international framework exists to govern AI weapons, no equivalent of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, no inspections regime, no agreed definitions of what even constitutes an AI weapon, there is no shared language to even begin the conversation about limits. The United States and China have had preliminary discussions about AI and military risk, but those conversations are in their absolute infancy. Both sides are racing, both sides are afraid of falling behind, and both sides know that the first country to achieve decisive AI military superiority will have a strategic advantage, unlike anything seen since the invention of nuclear weapons, or possibly ever. The last arms race that felt this open-ended, this unregulated, and this consequential ended with 2 cities turned to ash. This time, we're moving faster, and the weapons are more invisible. There is a reason this topic doesn't dominate the news the way it should. It's not an accident. Military AI development happens in classified settings, behind layers of national security exemptions, inside defense contracts that never get publicly disclosed. The companies building these systems, and some of the biggest names in Silicon Valley are among them, sign NDAs and work under security clearances. The researchers who have ethical concerns often can't talk about what they've seen. The journalists who try to cover it hit the walls of official silence. But the consequences are not abstract. Every time an AI system recommends a target and a human approves it too quickly because they trust the machine more than their own judgment, accountability is quietly eroded. Every time a deepfake video circulates and shapes what 1 million people believe about a war on the other side of the world, the shared reality that democracy requires becomes a little less shared. Every time an autonomous system makes a split-second decision that results in a civilian death, and there is no human to hold responsible, something breaks in the architecture of international law that took 100 years to build. The question that matters, the only question that matters, is whether we will demand to understand it before the decisions get made, or whether we'll wait until after. Because in this war, there is no front line, and there is no safe distance.